Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the class BMN 612 seminar on South and Southeast Buddhism. Today is May 24, 2021, our 8th meeting. Yes, 8th meeting. Hope everyone is doing things in the proper way. So we have like 3 weeks to go, including today. After today, only 2 weeks. So last week, you remember we were paying attention to the introduction of Buddhism to Sri Lanka and the some features of the historical events and some features of Sri Lankan Buddhism. Likewise, we are going to pay attention today to Thailand. The Buddhism in Thailand, how it was introduced, and what type of practices and influences, impact of Thai Buddhism from other countries and other traditions. So, as you may know, I think some of you are coming from Thailand, so you know better than I do. Thailand is one of the great nations in Asia. Whenever I think about Thailand, it reminds me that it is the land of, in fact, in the Western world, tourists, they usually recognize this land, the Thailand, as land of yellow robes. Land of yellow robes, they call it. Because you see every morning, everywhere in Thailand, especially in the cities, monks wearing the yellow robe, yes, saffron robe. They are on their arms round. They are going from house to house, or business to business, like that, holding the arms bowl. They go on the arms round. It's a very beautiful scene to see in the morning on the streets of Thailand. So this is a good attraction. Tourists are attracted to this scene, and that's why they have named Thailand as the land of yellow robes. And I think the meaning of the word is land of freedom, land of free land. Free land is Thailand. I think they call it, they name it that way because most of the Asian countries were colonies of the, under the colonialization, British and the French and other powerful countries. In certain period of history, they have invaded most of the countries in the Asia. They came under their control. But Thailand was not, never became a colony of any other nation. So in that sense, Thailand is free. So that's why it's called free land, I guess. Free land, okay? And in the history, if you go to the ancient history, usually this area, not just Thailand, but including Burma and Laos, Cambodia, that southeastern area is recognized as Swarna Bhumi. Swarna Bhumi, the Pali word. Swarna Bhumi means, the Swarna means gold. Bhumi is land. So Swarna Bhumi is golden land. So this area, not just Thailand, all the neighboring countries, including the neighboring countries, that area is recognized as golden land. So in the Pali text, sometimes you find this name Swarna Bhumi. So when you look at the history of Buddhism, before that, let me mention this. Thailand has the highest number of monks. Over 300,000 monks living in the country. And there over 95% of the population, sometimes they calculate as 98, over 95 to 98% of the population are Buddhist. So highly recognized religion in Thailand. So very powerful in that sense. 300,000 monks. Imagine 300,000 monks all over the country going on alms round. That's a very beautiful scene to see. And the other thing is, in Thai culture, in Thai tradition, almost all the male people are supposed to be a monk to get ordination, at least for one day. At least for one day, the young people, they have to get the ordination. They have to become a monk. So sometimes they practice it for 3 months, 1 month, sometimes 1 or 2 years. And some of the kings, very famous Thai kings, were Buddhist monks before they came to the government. Before they got the power in the country, they were monks. And I know one king was, he was like 27 or 30 years. He had been a monk. So that tradition is there. So they recognize being a monk is a blessing. And also it's a merit-making thing. You can earn merits by being a monk. And when somebody, your loved one, a very close relative, maybe your mother, your father, your grandma, grandpa, if one of them dies, the younger ones, those who are related to them, son, mostly they get ordination. They become a monk for at least 7 days or 3 days, or depending on their capacity. Live in the monastery and earn merits and transfer the merits to the departed one. That tradition is very strong in Thailand. I don't know the people who are coming from Thailand here. I cannot see you here, but probably you must have also experienced this thing in your life. So, and the very important thing again you need to understand is Thailand is purely a Theravada country. You know by now the different traditions in Buddhism. So Thailand is a Theravada country. Let us look at how Buddhism got the entrance into Thailand. There is no clear picture as to when and how Buddhism came in contact with Thailand, in Thai nation. But usually some people say, some people strongly believe that King Ashoka's missions, we were talking about that thing. King Ashoka sent 9 missionaries to different countries. One of them, the royal messengers of King Ashoka, some monks went to Suvarna Bhumi. That's how it is mentioned, Suvarna Bhumi. So even in the Sri Lankan chronicles, they say one group went to Suvarna Bhumi. So Suvarna Bhumi is identified as Thailand and Burma, both. Southern part of Burma and the some northern part of Thailand. So Suvarnabhumi is, if Suvarnabhumi is Thailand, then Thailand received Buddhism at an early stage of its history, like the 3rd century BCE, before the Common Era. So, and then again, they have found some archaeological evidence, like the Dharma wheel, Buddhist symbol, and some other Buddhist monumental things in what you may call that city, Nakhon Pathom. Nakhon Pathom is in the western side of Western Thailand. So in that area, they say Dwaravati, another name. Buddhism just started over there. I mean, introduction of Buddhism happened in that area first. That is one opinion, one view. People believe that Buddhism was introduced into their country, into Thailand, as the earliest missionaries that were sent by King Ashoka in the 3rd century BCE. And another view is that during the Middle Ages in the sense that like the 3rd, 4th, 5th centuries, during that time, some Mahayanic influence also came into the country, Mahayana and also Hindu, because during that time, the Hindu tradition was powerful in Cambodia and neighboring other countries, India, of course. And with that, Mahayana Buddhism crept into Thailand. That's another idea. But nonetheless, you should not say that Thailand is a Mahayana country. It is not, but it has some influence of Mahayana Buddhism. It has some influence in the Thai Buddhism. So in the Middle Ages, Thailand got the impact of Hinduism and Mahayana Buddhism into their country, and they were able to assimilate those things into their practices. And the other thing is that during the like King Anuratha or King Anuruddha, very famous king in Thai history, in the 11th century, 1050 or 1042, around that time, King Anuruddha, he became a king in Burma. Okay, that king was so like King Ashoka, not like 100%, but just like King Ashoka, he wanted to share Buddhism around his neighboring countries and that area, that southeastern area. So he had contact with Thailand, and he was able to exchange monks with the Thai country, and that way Buddhism got established in Thailand. So we are not sure about these things, but they believe that thing that's a historical thing, that thing happened. But I do not think that is the introduction of Buddhism to Thailand, but maybe the King Anuruddha's efforts were helpful in establishing or popularizing Buddhism or reviving Buddhism in Thailand. And another very strong opinion is there that Sri Lanka is also playing a role in introducing Buddhism to Thailand. During the 11th century, in the 11th century, Sri Lanka had a very powerful king. He united the whole country and he purified the monks, the Sangha. And Thailand became to know that, okay, in Sri Lanka now, everything is clear, very good. And they had some contact with Sri Lanka and exchange things. And some monks were sent from Thailand to Sri Lanka to study Buddhism and practices and all that. And then they went back to Thailand and established monasteries and the Sri Lankan tradition. In fact, this thing happened with Burma too. That area, usually the monks recognize themselves as Sihala Sangha. Sihala means Sri Lankan. Sihala Sangha, because the lineage comes from Sri Lanka. So they identified themselves as Sihala Sangha. It is historical fact. So there are at least 4 opinions with regards to the introduction of Buddhism to Thailand, as I told you just now. The very first one is the introduction by King Ashoka, Ashoka's missionary works, and then Mahayana influence from the Middle Ages, Mahayana and Hindu blending. That is actually that is still seen in the Thai Buddhist tradition, that the blending of mixing of Hindu and Mahayana practices in that fold, in that country. And Burmese influence also is there, as I told you. King Anuruddha's efforts. He exchanged monks and he sent monks to propagate or popularize Buddhism in Thailand. And the other thing is Sri Lankan influence. Sinhalese or Sri Lankan influence on the propagation of Buddhism in Thailand. So the picture is not that clear. There are little pieces here and there. So, but Thai people strongly believe that they got Buddhism from India, Sri Lanka, and all those countries. They were helpful. So from the very beginning, Thai Buddhism is Theravada. We were talking about these things. Theravada practices and Theravada ideology, Theravada Buddhist way of practice was introduced to Thailand. Thailand became, later on, it became a very powerful hub of the Theravada Buddhism. And a very interesting thing is that Buddhism was exchanged between, they did something like swapping. When Buddhism was at a very low stage, depending on wars and other things, Buddhism declined. When it is in decline, another country of the same tradition helped. So the Burma, today we call Myanmar, Burma, Thailand, and Sri Lanka, also Cambodia. They were exchanging things. When you are in trouble, I help you. When I'm in trouble, you help me. Just like that, when Burma is in trouble in the sense that their Buddhism is challenged with certain things, Sri Lanka came forward and helped them to re-establish it. They exchanged monks. And when Sri Lanka had the problem, when we were under the British, when I use we, I'm a Sri Lankan. When Sri Lanka was in trouble with the colonial period, they did not have even in the whole country, they were unable to find 4 monks. Not even 4 monks in the whole country. In that situation, Burma and Thailand, of course, helped sending monks and actually missionaries to help to revive Buddhism in Sri Lanka. So these 3 countries, Burma, Myanmar, Burma or Myanmar, Thailand, and Sri Lanka. They were having close contact based on Theravada ideology, Theravada Buddhism, which is a good thing. Otherwise, Buddhism would have lost in these countries if they were not generous enough to share whatever they have, reviving each other's tradition. So that's a very good practice. And you see in Thai Buddhism, so it is Theravada, okay? So Theravada practices and monastic tradition is like that. Becoming a monk, as I told you, is a highest thing. And the monastic practices, the disciplinary rules, and studying the Abhidhamma, the higher learnings, and monks are supposed to study the Buddhist teachings, Buddha's message. And so there are over, nowadays they calculate like over 38,000, what you may call what means Thai people, you may know, some of you may know what means monastery or temple. Monastery dedicated for the use of monks. Even here in Los Angeles, we have a Wat Thai, which is very close by here to my temple. Wat Thai, what means a monastery, where you learn, you practice Buddhism, and you become a monk in that place, and you live in that place, helping the people and guiding the people. So over 38,000 watts in Thailand, they say. So in that tradition, very highly recognized monks, they were dedicating their life for the propagation of Buddhism, as well as for the own liberation, one's own liberation. They practice and let the others practice also. And Thai people are really, really supportive for the monks. The Thai government is also helping a lot, because Buddhism in Theravada countries, if the royal patronage is not there, the religion declines. That's how it is. In Sri Lanka, Burma, Thailand, all those countries. If the royal patronage is not there, then the religion declines. So in these three countries, not just Thailand, the other two countries too, royal patronage is there. Even today, the modern system of parliamentary system and all other things, they recognize Buddhism as a sort of state religion. It has the priority in their practices. So, and interestingly, in Thai tradition, there is a belief that if you want to get married to a good woman, you have to be a monk before. You have to be an ex-monk to get a good wife, to find a good wife. That kind of belief is there. So Buddhism is in that sense very strong. And also, the other important thing is in Thailand, they have the forest monastic tradition. When I use the what WAT, what are like the temples, monasteries in the city, in the villages. They are helping the villagers and the people, peasants, and the people who are nearby, maybe the relatives or whatever, taking care of their religious needs, spiritual needs, counseling, doing meritorious activities to transfer merits for the departed ones and things like that. And the other branch is the forest tradition. Forest tradition is monks who are 100% dedicated for meditation. Many such monks in Thailand, in the rural forest areas, they are away from the cities and the business and all kinds of things. They are away from them. People, they don't sometimes see people. Only see people when they collect their alms, when they collect their food. Other than that, they totally dedicate their life for the meditation practices. There are many monks like that. So that is the forest monastic tradition, which has become popular even in here in the United States, because some foreigners, they got attraction of this tradition, and they went to Thailand. There are many famous monks all over the world right now. England, in here, and Australia, New Zealand, all those countries. They have very famous Thai forest, we call forest monks. Forest monks because they live in the forest, practice Buddhism, practice meditation, learn and practice, and then they have now gone all over the world, and they have started their centers everywhere, and propagating their tradition. Even in California, there are many like that. So that tradition is also very strong and very powerful in propagating Buddhism all over the world. You have to understand these two divisions: village monks and the forest monks. That's how we usually call them. Village monk is the monk who is living in a temple, taking care of the temple duties and counseling the people, helping them. They do merits for themselves and for others. But the forest monk, as opposed to the village monks, they dedicate themselves for their inner development, spiritual development, like engaged in meditation and find freedom, and then they teach it to others too. So this practices are there. And also in Thailand, you find new, in the 20th century, this forest meditation tradition. Ajahn Chah is a very famous name, and many other famous monks. They had they started meditation centers in Thailand, and a lot of foreigners became disciples or students of those monks and practicing meditation tradition. Ajahn Chah's or many other monks also very famous in the world. Theravada practices, very strict Vinaya rules. Vinaya means the disciplinary rules. Sometimes if you do not have enough strength, you cannot follow it. So there are many stories like that. And the other important thing is in Thailand, in modern period, you find some revival movements in Buddhism. One of the big practice, big tradition, big organization in Thailand is Dharmakaya, very famous Dharmakaya organization. Monks and lay people together, they practice meditation. Only one type of practice for all, for monks as well as lay people. Beautifully organized ceremonies and things like that. They also made meditation popular among lay people, and also actually monks too. So Dhammakaya is one of the famous organizations started in Thailand, and still today it's being very popular all over the world now. So in this way, Thai tradition, Buddhism in Thailand is a blend of, it's totally, we recognize it as Theravada Buddhism, but it has some influence from Mahayana, it has some influence from Hinduism, and also it has some influence from the local, how do I say, local deities and spirits, folk religion, local folk religions. All these things are blended, mixed in Thai Buddhism, but it is recognized as Theravada Buddhism. The language is Pali. When you perform religious activities, you use Pali. Monks use Pali. Monks learn Pali, and they practice things in the according to what you may call the Theravada practices. A very powerful country in the southeast area on Theravada Buddhism. They have beautiful ceremonies, just like in any other country. That the ritualistic part is there. One of the great things is that king's support, government support is highly visible. So Buddhism survives there, flourishes there because of that practice. And the monks, over 300, I think none of the other countries in the world has such a big number of monks. Only problem over there is that women are not allowed to be monk. Monk means nun, actually. Women's order has some issues. Even in Sri Lanka, they have the same issue. In Theravada countries, women, they do not have the, they did have before, but somehow it lost in the history. In Sri Lanka, of course, it is re-established. In Thailand, they can become like novice, but they do not have the higher ordination or the fully fledged monkhood for the ladies or for the women. So that's how the Buddhism flourishes in Thailand. So with that, I conclude the lecture today. So you may Google and find more information on Thai Buddhism if you are interested in learning more. And then we will proceed with the rest of the class next 2 weeks. So I will send you the homework, and also if you have any questions, please forward me. Most of you have done your midterms. If not, please submit them as soon as possible. And that's it. Thank you very much. Good luck.